June 1944. The Pacific was no longer silent. Beneath the dark pressure of the ocean, the Japanese submarine I-47 moved slowly through black water, her engines whispering against the deep. Commander Haruto Saito stood before the sonar display, eyes fixed on a thin green line that cut across the glass. Every few seconds, a pulse echoed through the room, faint but deliberate. The crew held their breath. It was not the sound of a whale, nor the hum of a ship's propeller. It was something different, precise, rhythmic, intelligent. Saito gave the order to halt. The submarine drifted in near silence, its steel body creaking like a trapped animal. The crew listened as the strange pattern of signals continued to echo through the sonar headset. They were not random. They were positioned in perfect alignment, a pattern stretching across the ocean like a trap laid by an invisible hand. The operator, Tanaka, whispered that the signals were being transmitted from small floating devices. Buoys. A chill moved through the control room. Until that night, they had believed the ocean still belonged to them, that Japan's submarines ruled the dark. But these new signals told another story. Someone was mapping the sea. Someone knew where they were. Sato's hands tightened on the console. For years, he had trusted that silence was safety, that deep water meant protection. But this silence now felt like betrayal. The buoys were not weapons, at least not directly. They were eyes, thousands of mechanical eyes spread across the ocean, each one listening, each one transmitting. The Americans had turned the sea itself into a vast network of ears. The sonar pings grew louder, closer, as if the buoys were adjusting to their presence. Saito gave the order to dive deeper, but the echoes followed. His men looked at him, with faces pale under the dim red lights. They were hunters who had just realized they were being hunted. For the first time, Saito understood that the war below the surface had changed. It was no longer about torpedoes or courage. It was about technology, invisible and relentless. The ocean had turned against them, and somewhere beyond the reach of their eyes, the enemy was already listening. The submarine descended into the blackness, pressure tightening around its hull like a giant hand. Every man aboard felt it, a low groan of metal against the weight of the deep. Commander Haruto Saito stared into the sonar glow, watching the buoys fade, then reappear. No matter how far they went, the sound followed. The rhythm was relentless, an artificial heartbeat that reminded them the ocean no longer hid them. The crew began to whisper theories. Some believed the Americans had released living machines, creatures of steel and current that could swim and listen at once. Others thought the signals were magic, proof that the enemy had found a way to turn the sea into a listening mirror. Saito said nothing. He simply listened, counting the seconds between each pulse. It was too perfect to be chance. In Tokyo, months earlier, reports had already warned of strange American technology dropped into the water from patrol aircraft, floating instruments that could detect sound and relay it to the sky. The crew of I-47 had dismissed it as propaganda. Now they knew it was real. Every buoy that touched the water sent invisible threads through the deep, connecting to planes overhead, forming a web that no submarine could escape. Tanaka adjusted the controls again. The readings multiplied. The buoys were closing in, forming a triangle around their position. Panic began to surface in the cabin. One man muttered that the Americans must already know their course, their speed, their depth. The illusion of invisibility shattered in seconds. Saito ordered silent running. Every motor, every fan, every sound that could give them away was shut down. The submarine drifted like a ghost. Yet the buoys kept answering. Each ping was an echo of control, a reminder that the surface world now ruled below. Then came a deeper sound, a rolling thunder far above them. Aircraft. The sonar flared with interference as something splashed into the water. A new pattern, louder and closer. The crew froze. Saito recognized it instantly. Torpedoes had been released. He gave the command to dive harder, the hull screaming under pressure. The lights flickered. Metal bolts rattled loose. The ocean that had once been their shield was now their executioner. In those suffocating moments, Saito realized that Japan's era of command beneath the waves was over. The enemy had not just learned to hear them. The enemy had learned to listen better than the sea itself. The ocean roared above them like a collapsing sky. The shockwaves struck first, then the silence that followed was worse. Inside the submarine, lamps swayed and flickered, droplets of condensation falling like slow rain. Commander Haruto Saito steadied himself, hearing only the creak of steel and the trembling breaths of his men. The torpedoes had missed, but only barely. The sound buoys continued to pulse through the deep, patient and steady, waiting for the next strike. Tanaka whispered that the signals had multiplied again. Dozens now surrounded them, marking their path like invisible stars. The Americans had not come for this single vessel. They had come for control. Each signal told a story. A sonar buoy dropped by aircraft, another by ship, all part of a network that stretched for miles. Saito understood, then, that this was not a single attack. It was a revelation. The sea had become an extension of enemy power. For years, Japan's Navy had believed that courage could defeat technology, that the spirit of a crew could overcome machines. But courage could not outswim sound, and pride could not hide from invisible waves. The war beneath the surface had entered a new age, one where silence no longer offered safety. Every move was now recorded by machines that never tired, never blinked, never erred. Saito gave the order to surface under cover of night. The submarine broke through the water with a low hiss, waves washing across the hull. The crew stepped onto the deck, faces pale beneath the moonlight. Above them, the sky was empty, yet they knew they were not unseen. Somewhere, someone was listening. He looked out across the endless sea and felt the truth settle in his chest. The ocean that once belonged to their ancestors, to the empire's pride, no longer obeyed them. It had become a battlefield ruled by signal and science. The sound of the buoys still echoed faintly through the hull, a mechanical heartbeat of the new world. In the years that followed, Japan would learn from its defeat. It would rebuild, turning its pursuit of war into a pursuit of progress. But that night, aboard I-47, Commander Saito and his men understood something deeper than loss. They had witnessed the birth of a new kind of power, one that did not roar with fire or steel, but whispered through water, unseen and unstoppable.